to bring in Glenn Norling, Executive Director of the Active Shooter Prevention Project. Glenn, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me, Lois.
Glenn, I wanted to get your reaction to this report and how you think this is going to translate to those families of the victims, because Merrick Garland was saying that he hopes that this report really highlights what these families deserve, that they deserve better. What did you think of the report?
And absolutely, the families and everyone deserved better with that. So this is a very comprehensive report, 610 pages of assessing the multiple, as it describes in there, the cascading failures that occurred that horrible day. And one of the things that we hope, much as we look back to Columbine, as we call that a watershed moment, and how law enforcement prepared and trained for these type of incidents, we look for change. We look for this report hopefully planting the seed to where we need to start talking about how we need to migrate our training for law enforcement. We've been doing active shooter training for decades now, but one of the things this report very clearly identifies is that we need to do some additional training in mindset, in that command authority, in that taking command in a critical type of incident to the officer, the deputy, the agent that's there. They need to understand what type of a situation they're going into. They need to have that mental fortitude that understands they need to continue to charge forward. And you saw in the report, it even talks about how they started that, but that ceased once they decided to transition to a barricading subject. And that's contrary to all the type of training we've been doing for the past decades. So not only does it talk to the actions of law enforcement, but the report also addresses communications, which is always a challenge in a crisis, to command, a lack of leadership in there too, as well as a lack of pre-planning, a lack of policy for how we would address this, to an overall culture, and this is back to mindset, an overall culture of complacency around that particular area.
And do you think there might be other changes in other areas in terms of how police respond to these kinds of incidents?
You're not going to see an immediate change overnight, but I do think we're going to go back. We're going to start across law enforcement. We're going to be looking at policies. We're going to be looking at that training, trying to incorporate additional training for command in these type of crises that you have. We do lots of tactical training, lots of movement like that, but clearly what the failure was here is a lack of taking command and a lack of mindset and continuing to charge forward into harm's way. And that's something we need to integrate and incorporate into our training for officers, deputies, agents, everyone, and because again, the families and everyone deserves better.
And on that note, how do you think a report like this impacts those whose loved ones didn't survive this?
Well, of course, it brings back all the emotion, all the frustration and things like that. One thing from the report is a report like this hopefully will inspire change. That this level of detail, this level of assessment, evaluation of that will hopefully bring about change. That doesn't bring much satisfaction. You can never bring a loved one back for those families, unfortunately. But we hope for change going forward. And that's a tough pill to swallow for somebody in that situation. And my heart goes out to them.
Definitely. Okay, Glenn Norling, Executive Director of the Active Shooter Prevention Project, joining us today. Thank you so much, Glenn.